Hey there, everybody. Kelly Folletto here. Welcome to the Grit, Guts, and Courage Show. And in this show, we talk to people who have experienced something and they had to use grit, guts, and courage to get over it. So my guest today is the gorgeous Dinalynn, and I'm so excited to have her here because she's got an amazing story to share. So welcome, Dinalynn.
Thank you, Kelly. It's an honor to be with you every time I get to. It's fantastic. Thank you.
I know, and we even got to meet in person, which is so awesome. Loved it.
Yes, we did.
Awesome. Okay, so let's do it. What's your story?
All right. So I want to start with what it is that I'm doing right now. And the underpinnings of it is really the story. But what I'm doing right now is I've started a podcast. And the podcast is teaching, it's called The Language of Play. And it's teaching parents of children how to communicate better through building connection and communication strategies. Where this comes from is that I'm a speech language pathologist, and I regularly saw parents struggle with the same things all the time. They wanted to be able to help their kids learn to speak. They wanted to understand what their kids were saying. They wanted to be able to help them at home. And they wanted the kids to listen better and follow instructions. And over the years, I've thought so many times, I wish I could just teach parents how some of these strategies that we have as speech therapists, how do we implement them? You know, what is the theory? What is the strategy? And how is it that you can do this at home? It's not rocket science. It's just knowledge like everything else. And I've been asked numerous times to do this. I've had it in my head for probably 10 years to do something like this, but life is busy. And how do you implement? And as you know, my big hurdle has been like tech has scared me. Tech has been like just overwhelming. And so I thought, well, what do I do? And the way I came to this wasn't any normal, natural method. And this brings me back to when I met you, which was I had just experienced an extremely dangerous bout of late-stage Lyme disease. And late-stage Lyme disease took me out of my work environment. It took me out of all participation in life as I knew it, because I was just on the couch. I was in bed for a lot of 2 years. And that was, and I didn't end up doing a business focused on health, which of course was the track I had to go down, which was repairing my health, which is an enormous story. But it was through that story that I started to think in terms of just because I don't understand doesn't mean it doesn't work. And that concept was like what I needed to do in order to get well. So I went through Western medicine and got really sick from the medicine itself. And then I did integrative medicine, and then I did Eastern medicine. And when I was in Eastern medicine, I thought, this feels nuts. This is nuts. I don't know what I'm doing. And so just because I don't understand doesn't mean it doesn't work was my mantra. And then I just stayed with it, and my health was rebuilding. And as my health was rebuilding, I started reading a lot of books. And I realized I need to do work in personal journey, people pleasing. What is it that my fears are? What are my deep beliefs? What are my deep values? What is it that I want? And it's been a huge growth curve to figure out that I can do some of these things. And then in this time of reading, I came across a book. I forget the name of it. The author was Andrew Womack, I think. And I read the one phrase, your life is an exact replica of your thoughts, wishes, and wants. And I slammed the book shut and I said, no, it's not, out loud. And then I reopened the book and I thought, did I misunderstand this? And I reread it and I slammed the book shut. And I did this multiple times, wondering, how can that be? And that brought me down an entirely different route, because I realized I have to change how I think and what I wish for and my wants, and what's the difference between a want and a wish? Just the overall arching thinking pattern and belief system that you have going on inside. And that is where I put my effort and energy. And in that process is what actually opened up the concept to maybe I can teach these parents. How would I do this a different way? And would people be interested in it? And then who'd want to listen to me? And facing those, and then tech, as you know, to face those battles.
It's so exciting. Yeah, I love seeing the different change of things, right? I think it's so cool. So
Yeah, it weaves together, doesn't it? Our lives come together in ways that we don't expect. And the first struggle leads to courage to the next struggle, which leads to courage for the next struggle. And so even though I was laying on the couch thinking, what good is going to come of having Lyme disease? And I would have never, ever predicted that the courage, the guts, the bravery, all of that it takes to do something that is, it was life or death for me at that point. And so I chose what didn't make any sense to me, but it just felt right. Following your gut instinct, thinking I'm going to try this. And again, that is such a big story that I'll just say that. And if there's anybody that wants to communicate with me about that story, that's fine. But what I learned from that, built me up in a way that I could tackle another thing. And then, many things have come along the way, and then eventually built enough wherewithal within me to do something that's really scary because, like I said, I don't know tech. And so doing podcasting, of course, I'm learning a platform on a computer. I'm sitting at a computer. I'm learning how to edit at a computer. I'm looking at audio files. I'm learning how to use an email list. I'm learning how to do a website and a sales page and, all these things. And I don't even have business in my background. Not really,
Yeah.
So absolutely every part of what it is that I'm learning now is new. And so when you jump into something that is 100% new, except for my topic I'm solid on, but the way to deliver it, 100% of that is new. And that daily feels like it takes some nerves and some courage and some guts for me.
Oh, that's fantastic. So can you give us just a snippet of how you got through it? Like, how did you get through all that?
It's okay. So the first part of getting through it was really learning how to rely on God and people. Like there's a lot of prayer, meditation, thinking about my beliefs, my values, a lot of time in that internal space within myself and my spirit to figure out, what is it that I'm made for? What is my purpose? How do you weave together my life experience and what makes me happy? And believing that what makes me happy is something that is a God instilled part of me, not something to be avoided because, well, that's just frivolous stuff. So that was a mindset change. I always came to life with the idea that you have to work first and then you have time for play. Work first and make the money and then you can use it for play. Like these two separate categories. And so there was this shift inside of me to realize that God made me as I am for a purpose. And part of the purpose is what I find joyful, not just the work part. And so that was one shift. So the spiritual part was one big shift. And then the other shift was this reaching out to people to ask questions, to be vulnerable in front of people, to say, I don't get this, I don't know this, and let myself feel really dumb. And I've kind of prided myself on being smart. And one of the things that happened with late stage Lyme disease is that it was in my brain and my spinal cord. I had an experience with dementia. So you don't feel really smart when your brain is inflamed. You can't function. And during that period of time where my brain was inflamed, I presented as if I had dementia and I didn't really know what was going on. And my children were starting to talk about, what do we do with mom?
Oh,
So
no.
yeah, because it was pretty serious because I couldn't track conversation and, like the things that happened. And so this was inflammation of the brain. Now, since I prided myself with being smart, and then I had this experience, and now I'm coming into something where like, well, I'm not smart in tech. I am a beginner. I am just a green learner. And so to ask the questions and to be vulnerable and feel no shame and to be able to just become proud of myself for the growth rather than to think about my lack, and to even realize that it was a lack mindset was a big change. And to be able to say, to just really what it is to be vulnerable without shame.
That's beautiful. It is. It's so beautiful. So what would you tell someone going through the same thing? So there's a mom or a dad sitting in front of you and they're going through the exact same thing as you. What would you tell them?
Okay, so let's see. If it was an illness, I would say that you need to open your mind and consider that what you know isn't the only solution. What you know is only part of a great big pie of options. And to think about yourself as a learner, and to just relax in the knowing that it's going to be as it's supposed to be. Pray and trust that the steps that are before you are already laid out. You just have to uncover them. And that peace that comes from that, I think, allowed some healing. Because prior to getting that mindset, I was like grabbing on, how can I do it? How can I? How can I? And once I relaxed and sat back and said, okay, I'm not in control, but I'm going to open my mind and open my body to whatever healing source there is beyond my personal knowledge, a lot of healing happened. So that would be part of like illness. And then the other thing is belief. And I would tell somebody in that situation that there's going to be something good that comes from it, but you don't know what it is. Don't try to figure out what it is. You will only know later. Don't spend all that energy trying to figure out what it is. That's something that I did. Like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do next? But once I relaxed and said, I don't know, then again, in the relaxation, life of ideas came differently to me when I stopped pushing. So yeah, and if you're facing something that is like 100% new, I would say, yeah, find people that know what you're working on. And sometimes that's tricky. And again, it comes down to, for me anyway, when I would push, where do I find, who do I find, what? And you can hear the pattern of me, right? My personal thing is like, go get it. And when I would get into the mode of, I got to find it, then it's like, it was so far away. And then I would sit back, breathe and say, it'll come when it comes. Things start to show up differently. So yeah, put your sights, make your next step, but find the way to relax in the knowing that it comes in its time, and trust that the person will arrive that knows stuff for you.
Exactly. It's all about trust, right? A lot of times we don't know why things are happening to us, and we think it's just so tragic that something's happened to us. And then we find out down the road, oh my gosh, if that wouldn't have happened, this wouldn't have happened. If that wouldn't happen, this wouldn't have happened. And it just seems like it's a big domino effect. And then we realize, oh my God, this really isn't that bad.
Right. And then I had this experience a month ago where I fell down and it broke my kneecap. And I'm sitting here talking to you with ice on my leg as I, I'm waiting for it to heal. And so then I thought, well, what is the good that came from this? And it insisted that I carve everything out of my life that requires me to drive. Because I can't drive. My leg is straight. It's immobilized for a month or whatever it takes until the doctor says I can. And all of a sudden, I have time to do some other things that I had been wanting to do. Now, I would not have chosen that. Absolutely would not have chosen a broken kneecap, surgery, and all the stuff that goes with it, and the pain, whatever. But there's some silver lining. And this time, the silver lining in not being able to drive for a while is being loved on by my family. And it has been that I've been able to do some of the things, the worky things at the computer that makes me sit still, that I wasn't prioritizing to do, that I needed to prioritize to do, because I just don't really like to sit still.
Well, and it's funny because that would lead to my next question, which is what's the gift in it? And
Yeah.
you kind of talked about that, but feel free to share more. What's the gift in, having Lyme disease and going through all the challenges?
I think that the greatest, well, there's so many, there's like three main gifts that I think that I just came up with, as I said to you. The first one is the idea of reconnecting to God, to myself, to knowing, to being able to trust differently than I had been. It had been more in my head in a way. And now I think it's sinking deeper where I'm able to trust my intuition a little bit better, believing and trusting that that was placed there by God. And so I can trust it. So that's huge. Another gift of having Lyme was like how my family showed up for me. That was amazing. Like to be shown up for and to be cared for and nurtured and walked through to health. I wouldn't want that experience for anybody to have to do that. But when you are in a space of complete vulnerability, like I do not know that I would have survived on my own had people not stepped in. I'm pretty confident that I wouldn't have, because I wasn't able to even like stand long enough to cook something in the kitchen. Like I couldn't, well, at the peak bad, I got the 20 feet or whatever it was from my bed to the toilet. And then I had to roll off the toilet and sleep on the floor before I could get the energy to crawl back to my bed. Like that's really bad.
Yeah.
And so if that was my energy level, there was no way to feed myself, get to the kitchen and grab food or think, so there was, when your family shows up for you, that nourishes you in a way that builds that deeper inner trust too. I don't feel as much like I'm a lone ranger as I had felt.
Right.
So, and then I don't remember the third thing I said.
But
The idea of get your thoughts under control. So if your life is, like Womack said, an exact replica of your thoughts, your wishes, and your wants, we need to do some internal analysis if we're not liking what we have. And I tell you, that thought came to my head when I broke my knee, and I thought, no, it isn't. Once again. So it's a journey. It's not I'm there.
I love it. Okay,
Yeah.
so what are some words of wisdom you'd love to share with people?
Words of wisdom. I'm going to go back to those same two quotes. One of them being mine and one of them being from that book. The words of wisdom. If your life is an exact replica of your thoughts, wishes, and wants, and you don't like what you have, you need to pause, really pause, and consider what are the deeper thoughts that you have? What are the beliefs inside of you that you didn't know were there? What is it that you are spooling on? The negativity or the I wish it was different or whatever, the wants and the wishes are embedded in the things that you actually spool on. And so the more you spool on a negative thought, wishing it wasn't, you're deepening you're anchoring that it is, because your brain continues to relive the thing that you think about. And so then you anchor that in. So be careful what you think about and how you think. And the other thing that I would leave would be this concept of opening your mind. Just because I don't understand doesn't mean it doesn't work. And that was my mantra that I just started speaking to get me through this experience of late stage Lyme disease. So that was huge. That was like a stepping stone, and everything kind of hinges on that. Just because I don't understand doesn't mean it's not true. Just because I don't understand doesn't mean it doesn't work. Just because I don't understand, it doesn't mean anything.
Well, that's just like, we don't understand how power works, but it works.
Right. There's so much we don't understand, and it doesn't mean it's not true. And I think a lot of us think that what we understand is.
Right.
And it's logical thinking, but it's also faulty.
Excellent. Okay. So, Dinalynn, how can people get in touch with you?
Yes. Thank you for asking that. So hello@thelanguageofplay.com is my email, and then go to my podcast and listen. It's called The Language of Play. If you have any issues that you would like to learn how to communicate better with your children, or teach them how to speak and teach them how to listen better, all of that. And I would love to hear from people either, and you can still use hello@thelanguageofplay.com if you have questions about Lyme disease as well. And I would be happy to hear from anybody.
Good. Thank you so much, Dinalynn. I just loved hearing your story, because you are probably like the first person I've really been able to talk to about Lyme disease. So it's fascinating learning about it. And it's fascinating seeing your growth from there to here and seeing, the gift in it. So
I met you when I was in the middle of the muddle, wasn't I?
Yeah, that's right. So Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for listening, and have a great day.
Thank you so much, Kelly.
You're very welcome.